Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have 4 brand new movies here for you folks. So we have Opus, directed by Mark Anthony Green. We then have Electric State on Netflix by Joe and Anthony Russo. We have Novocaine by Dan Burke and Robert Olson. And finally, Black Bag, directed by Steven Soderbergh. So let's get Vincent Daly in here, hear about all these new films, hear what he has to say. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how are we doing over there?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay. On this side of the table, you were at the movies a lot this week.
I was, and next week I'm going to be at the movies a lot, and the week after that.
How was,
Spending some time in those seats.
And then we had the big Russo brothers coming up. Was this the first Russo film after The Gray Man?
Yes, after Gray Man, yeah.
Okay, so they've just been with Netflix the whole time.
Yeah. There's one before that, which is Cherry, that they did for Apple, but all streaming projects after Endgame, which I'll have plenty to say about, because the Electric State is getting dragged and will get dragged.
Well, as you know, I watched it.
Yeah, you texted what you texted me.
I watched the Electric State, and I watched Black, and of course we went to AMC together, watched Black Bag.
Yeah.
Soderbergh's new film. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have all new movies this week. We'll probably have a bunch of new movies next week. We're into the finally in 2025 movie year, which is good to see. I don't know. Good week? Were you annoyed this week?
Like I said before we started, the 4 new movies all could have been on streaming and saved me a lot of time going to the theaters and sitting through trailers and whatnot. So I think that's about it. What I have thoughts on the week as a whole. There really is just all these could have just been on streaming in some capacity for one reason or another.
And I kind of agree with that with Black Bag seeing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm glad we went to. I don't know. I guess I'm a guy that wants theaters to continue. right. But more so, it was a smaller film for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I like going to the theater for it, but I didn't have to go to the movie 3 times this week.
Sure. Yeah.
So where do we want to start, or do you have any opening notes?
Well, I have some trailer talk, but we can put that at the end.
No. Let's do some trailer talk.
All right. Okay.
Trailer talk in the beginning.
Right, like trailers. All right, let's talk about Drop. This is the next one from Blumhouse. That it's the single mom going on the date, and she's being ransomed. Okay.
Yep.
I cannot stress enough how much hot shit this looks like. Looks like a truly,
you're not looking forward to it.
Awful movie.
You're not looking forward to it, that's for sure.
Just the definition of Blumhouse schlock. We have another Blumhouse movie called Woman in the Yard, I think actually in 2 weeks from now. Really doesn't look much better Blumhouse-wise, but it's just a shame Danielle Deadwyler, Daily Ratings winner.
Oh, yes, she did. She won Best Actress for
Tom
Till.
Daly's winner. She is being dragged down by it. I mean, she looks like she's trying to give a good performance in this. Man, I can't tell you the disappointment I feel when I see these actors and actresses go over to the dark side of Blumhouse. There's a new movie from the Filippo brothers who did Talk to Me, that director duo.
Yes.
Called Bring Her Back.
What did you see that you were seeing all these? Was this Opus?
I kind of sat through trailers for all these, for Novocaine, Opus, and
I haven't seen any.
And Black Bag.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. Bring Her Back, it's a very scattered trailer, but looks really scary. Looks like genuinely scary.
Okay, good for you.
And I bring it up as kind of like the tail end of the Blumhouse talk, because Bring Her Back definitely is something to keep an eye out on. Have you seen this new spy action movie with Rami Malek, The Amateur?
I think I saw one thing come up on, I don't know, it was like an ad when I was watching a YouTube video maybe or something like that.
Okay. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I need another cut of this trailer.
Uh-oh.
It's just I've seen it way too many times now that I know the exact how the movie's going to play out to the T. And at the very end of the trailer, Rami Malek has a line where he says, "If you jump really fast, you might escape the blast." And I can't hear that anymore. I can't hear the rhyme of it anymore. I can't take it seriously at all, even when watching the movie. It looks terrible. Two more.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Two more.
So there's one you're looking forward to.
Yeah.
By the way,
none of these are really great.
The one with the woman on the date, I kind of want that one main guy to get bigger.
Oh, okay.
The one who's like on the date with her.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in 1923, the Taylor Sheridan show.
Yep.
And I think they're trying to Glenn Powell him.
Oh.
But I think he could be a good Glenn Powell-esque parallel. Yeah.
You're right.
Anyway, that's okay. So what else do you got?
I didn't know this was a thing, but Until Dawn is a video game that's being made into a movie. It's a horror movie, a horror video game. And I'm definitely kind of mixed on it. Sony is behind it. I played all the games from that studio.
Mm-hmm.
All I'll say is that if that is done really well or done to some successful degree, that in combination with Five Nights at Freddy's and that like kind of cult success that had, I feel like horror could have a field day with gobbling up these video game horror IPs.
I mean, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, so basically like this mid-budget to low-budget horror that always does successfully well. I feel like they are going to have kind of a second wind of just gobbling up all these video game IPs and have a field day with it. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
That totally makes sense. I mean, I don't know if Resident Evil does a great job with that, but
You're right.
But for the most part, there are a lot of horror video games that can play with this.
Yeah. And just like so many out there that little indie horrors or something like that have some kind of following online. They just grab the IP, make a movie.
Well, and get a good director, hopefully. Like that's what it's about.
Yeah, right.
Because there are some good horror video games. I probably would say, I don't know.
Oh, boy.
Some of the work is just done for you already as well.
Yes.
There's some actually good, scary stuff. So if you put it to film, but you have to get the right guy for it.
Yeah. And that's absolutely my observation as well, like that there's something there that the work is done for you already. If it has some, little bit of success adapted for the screen, if you change it a little bit, I don't think that's necessary. But a lot of these cases, you don't need to change it that much. And then my last note is I saw just a straight re-release trailer for Pride and Prejudice from 2005, I want to say. Keira Knightley and whatnot. And it just clicked with our Tom and Vin Save the Movies episode because there is a market for re-releases, anniversaries, that type of comment that we were making. I feel like we missed a really big opportunity of just like re-releasing rom-coms for a completely female market. Like re-release The Notebook a dozen times. Bring out Titanic again.
There's absolutely Titanic just played recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it did just play recently.
But I think like that is a moneymaker right there.
That's a great idea.
And what is a rom-com but like heavily rewatchable, something that you watch 100 times?
And maybe honestly, it could be happening. We just don't know it. My biggest thing is just like they do these re-releases and then they don't tell anyone about it. It's the most like quietest. Why don't we know about this type thing?
Yep.
But I think that's a great idea. I think comedies in general would be great because they don't make comedies anymore.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think rom-com, okay. Get the female audience
with
in
that
there.
Re-release market, absolutely.
Okay.
But that's about it.
You're not looking forward to Mission Impossible.
I left out Mission Impossible specifically. That also is another, like The Amateur, needs another trailer cut, honestly. The trailer that we get is basically a sizzle reel of all the previous
I'm fine with
Mission
that.
Impossibles.
I would prefer that, actually.
Really?
Well, because I would rather see nothing than all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm with you there.
I'm going to deal with just like a nice 30-second trailer to tease
Right.
me with.
Yeah.
Instead, we're getting 3.5-minute just movies, basically, that tell the entire thing.
Yep.
But anyway, the scissor reel thing, I'm fine with that with Mission. I'm once again, I'm staying away from. I'm not looking up trailers for that at all.
Yeah.
Not going online and looking up. I just want to
because you're excited.
Yeah, because I want to stay in the dark with it all.
Yeah.
And I don't have the best hopes for it, but I do think it's going to be better than Dead Reckoning Part 1. Mm-hmm. And this, of course, is Dead Reckoning. It's actually Final Reckoning. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Anyway. Okay. Is that it for the
that's it for the
intro
trailer
stuff?
talk.
Okay. So we're gonna do. You want to do Opus first?
Yeah, sure.
Kind of the smallest of the films.
Yeah.
It's in limited release now. Opus came out at Sundance. And it was getting some of the most buzz coming out of Sundance. I don't think it ended up winning the big award, which I forget what the title of that award is for that festival. But this was most talked about because you have Ayo Edebiri in it, who's rising to fame. She is in The Bear. She's just getting more and more popular. She's already been in a couple small films before in the past couple years. And then you have John Malkovich seemingly acting like a psychopathic John Malkovich,
which is John Malkovich,
and everybody enjoys. Yeah. So I don't. Other than that, I know a little bit about the movie, but why don't you set it up for us? What is this small movie about, and tell us about Opus.
Well, I'm definitely in the same boat of just like really not expecting much walking into this. This is the feature debut for writer-director Mark Anthony Green. And walking into this, I wasn't expecting anything more than just checking out Ayo Edebiri after her rise in popularity on the FX show The Bear. Unfortunately, like a lot of the movies this week, it is getting a sizable amount of hate online, however. In my book, if you start your movie with Maggot Brain by Funkadelic, that is a pretty stylish way to hook me. Yeah, it was a cool opening. But with the full film under my belt, I can't deny that it's got more than a few elements that don't connect with the audience and certainly just didn't connect for me. Opus is a very stylish suspense mystery that blinds you with stardom, only to spiral into conspiracy where there are just very little breadcrumbs pointing for. Ayo plays Ariel, a overlooked journalist working for a magazine. Like many upstarts, she passionately fuels her great ideas to her boss, only to be overlooked time after time. This world's pop megastar, Moretti, played by John Malkovich, comes out of retirement after a 20-plus year hiatus, mysteriously calling out Ariel, who had no connection to him and is suddenly now invited to have a new interview on his private island community. For the celebration of his 18th studio album, the eccentric pop star gathers a handful of people to his kind of bohemian commune, almost utopian in every way, but holding more than a few suspicions for our visiting guests. Soon, the secrets of his followers, the Levelists, will be revealed, along with why Moretti would come out of retirement just to make yet another pop album. I would say I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I want to kind of condense the thoughts and also maybe do some pre-work on these type of movies that have been coming around. Let me start by making a big statement for any movie that tries to introduce a fictional music star. You sure better have convincing music. A recent example of this not working was Shyamalan's Trap, pushing his daughter's singing career, which was not only dead on arrival, but failed at selling the music we hear as chart-topping hits. Mm-hmm. And that disconnect is exactly where I have a problem with some of this sometimes. This factor exclusively really splits my thoughts on the film, down to the music, down to the reality of Moretti being this chart-topping, all-time pop artist. On the positive side, I did think the music was pretty good here, or at least kind of acceptable for this pop star fantasy. We hear around 3 tracks that are supposed to be off of this 18th album, I guess. The caliber of talent that's making the music is a great start, and I think that's really the thing that's saving it slightly here. It's created by Nile Rodgers, disco famous from the band Chic, and producer The Dream, who has created hits all the way through the 2000s and 2010s. On the other hand, the casting choice of who represents this mega stardom is just a total miss for me. As much as I enjoyed Malkovich and his intellectual persona that he brings, I'm pretty sure this is one of the worst miscasts I've seen in a long time.
So Malkovich is playing the pop star.
Yes, he's playing Moretti.
Okay. And is it supposed to be... honestly, the music element kind of missed me. I just thought this was more so he's a cult leader.
Right.
Which I know it's probably cultish and everything like that. And he has his own island and whatever.
Yep.
But I didn't realize they were pushing such a music element on him.
Oh, yeah. The cult starts with him being a creative. He just happens to be a pop star. And that definitely is an important element at play here that I think Malkovich being unconventional for what your expectations of this mega pop star to be is kind of interesting. Mostly, though, it just fails at selling me on the reality that this is the number one pop star in the world. This music we are hearing is examples of what's like the most cutting edge music, I'm sorry, Malkovich is just not that character. Despite passable music, and plenty done with the story to show his kind of feverish fandom, there is just a constant disconnect with who is actually on screen. Moretti as a character, he is an amalgamation of Elton John, David Bowie, and Lady Gaga. He's supposed to have a cult-like grasp on pop music for the last 50 years. Like, this is like beyond Michael Jackson, beyond, you know what I mean? He's supposed to be the very top, and it just doesn't sell it. I think, like, it's a total miscast. Recently in TV and movies, there have been a lot of handful of projects framing the topic of over-obsession, whether that be for pop music or rich people and hyper-wealth, this is absolutely trying to include itself in. But his depiction, Moretti, Malkovich, his depiction in this was so satirical and so eccentric that it just hurts the believability of the whole premise. Like, the whole premise, I feel like, hinges on his character, and man, I just was not connecting with it at all. The goals of their stories differ, but this is yet another mystery on an ultra-rich island story, which, if I'm being real, it's a setup that's getting a little old fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Blink Twice and Glass Onion come to mind immediately, but this setting is at risk for quickly becoming a new haunted house in terms of cliche, especially in the challenge of dealing with our victims' phones in a digital world. I think it's great that the premise of all these ultra-rich island haunted houses are that they have to sacrifice their phones, and that's a good writing trend. I like that, you know. I've even talked about on the show that I think writing a modern story, you really have to decide, are phones an element or are they not?
Yeah, it plays a big factor.
Yeah.
Some directors hate it. Like, that's why.
Right.
Well, Robert Eggers said he's never going to make a new movie or set in modern day because he does not want to deal with the cell phone.
Right. It is a something you have to dance around as far as the plot goes. So, you know, for what it's worth, I think there is potential here to still do something in these, you know, again, the ultra rich island haunted house that's been coming about. And this is probably the best looking out of the bunch, at least in terms of those two other examples. I really did enjoy the aesthetic of this film. But at the same time, concept-wise, it is the strangest, it is the most unbelievable, and the most prone to fall off its own track. We're going to go ahead and give Opus a 56.
Okay, 56%. And I mean, that makes sense with everything you just said.
Yeah.
It's. I'm glad it's not failing in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know.
Ayo, I wanted to, you know, I think she's good. She has that same charm that she has in The Bear, where she's very smart, but she's not really like putting it in your face. It's almost like her intelligence definitely plays into the comedy of it.
Right.
I think that's on display here. So I'm happy that she's getting leading roles with this, but I'm telling you, so much was on Malkovich's shoulders. So much was on what the character represents as well, and all
it wasn't
of it.
being sold.
Yeah,
it was being sold.
Was very unbelievable.
And then Juliette Lewis is also in it. We know her as kind of being an unhinged character.
Yeah.
So was she good or no? Based on your face, not impressed?
Yeah. Take it or leave it.
Okay.
Take it or leave it. Actually, like Blink Twice, there's a surprising amount of like, why did they cast that person in this?
Okay.
Or like, how did they get them? Unfortunately, put Juliette Lewis in that. So
Okay. All right. So you want to do Novocaine next, correct?
Yeah, let's do Novocaine.
Okay. So Novocaine is starring Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son, who has been popping up a decent amount. He was already in Companion from this year. Mm-hmm. He's been in some other small bits, but in major movies. Mm-hmm. I don't know. For some reason, I like that this movie. I turned around on this film.
Okay.
To the point where I almost wanted to see it, but I didn't turn around on it that much. Where I was like, I'm going to see it. The reason why is I like that it was $18 million to make.
Yep.
And I don't know where this belongs. I'm sure. I mean, I know you're going to say this is a streaming movie.
Yeah.
But maybe we need. It's an action movie though too. It really is just another action movie. We are.
It is a rom-com action movie. I will say that.
Well, so is Love Hurts.
Exactly, and it is better than Love Hurts. So
okay,
we saw Love Hurts together, right?
We did.
Yeah.
I'm just turning myself around on this completely. Maybe Novocaine has
for the twice, for the second time.
All right, but Novocaine. I mean, that's a major actor in it, and tell us about it and overall how'd you like it?
Oh well, that's really my starting note as well. You know, barely long enough to leave recent memory. Companion with Jack Quaid was one of the few half-decent movies we've gotten so far this year, and Honestly, what an abysmal start it's been. If you managed to see anything in theaters over the past few months, though, you would have no doubt seen a trailer for Novocaine, and quickly spoiled on what little this has to offer in the story department. Novocaine is yet another rom-com action flick this year, with most of its comedy coming from shocking violence shrugged off by our title character. Both a lone officer and loner loser. I don't know why I wrote that. That's not even, I don't know. Nate Kane is terrified of all the wrong things in life, and a medical condition prevents him from feeling any pain to begin with. Nonetheless, he is paralyzed by going after the girl he loves, Sherry. After a painfully awkward meet-cute in the film, things are looking up for Novocaine until the bank he works for is robbed, taking his new girl hostage. Nate now must live up to his superhero-like gifts and fight to get his girl back, but feeling no pain or not, he is still up against a radicalized threat that can chop him to bits. I mentioned it in our companion review. I don't really dig Jack Quaid's acting too much and his millennial flow. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's
His
bad
big thing
quality.
is like normal guy, right?
Yeah.
He's like trying to be normal guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. The millennial flow.
Okay.
the vibe. Again, it's not outright hate. I still have not seen The Boys. No hate towards The Boys, but obviously that's going to be his big breakout.
Season
so
1
far.
was great.
Right. But that's classic Tom.
I did.
What's the last show you've only given season 1 to? Because if you're gonna hold this crown, you need to.
That's true because I have been watching more. I went in. I started season 2 of 1923.
Okay.
Watched the first 2 episodes at least. You know what? That's a great question.
You got to keep up with it.
I've been keeping up with Taylor Sheridan shows. And what other I watched season 1 and I don't know.
Season 1 and done. That's good.
That's usually I've done it for more shows than I even thought.
Right.
Because they would pop in my head and be like, "Oh yeah, first season, yeah."
Didn't bother going any further than that.
I do remember loving Boys season 1. Not even realizing he was Quaid's son.
Yes.
And it was all good.
Sure.
It was all good.
Sure. And don't get me wrong, he's had other things even earlier than that that he's been coming up with, but that really was the breakthrough that it feels like is a result, is like the resulting factor that is bringing about these movie deals now. I would say my dislike of him, probably not far off from someone that hates Michael Cera for his awkward routine. That same awkward routine is just really one note for me, and I'm really already tired of it. I just want to see him do something a little bit different. Not that these projects that he's a part of are outright terrible. Like I said, again, Companion, probably one of the few standouts of the year so far, but there's just there's something I need to be refreshed on it. It's already kind of a little old hat. His love interest in this is played by Amber Midthunder, who is actually in 2 movies this week. She was in Opus that we just talked about. Maybe more recognizably, though, she is the lead girl in Prey from 2022, and now breaking into new stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely a starting point, a career starter. These two together aren't bad. But the romance side of this was just such a throwaway. It really just brought my opinion down of both of them. Like, the romance in this was not it. It was very cliche, very forgettable. Maybe that was also kind of the point, I will say, that it was just kind of on rails to get to the action. Let's get him a motivation. Let's get to the action, with the premise of he can't feel pain. How do we craft action around that? The romance in this was really, really a throwaway, and it just did not help my opinion on either of these actors. Now, where this is much better than something like Love Hurts that we covered, less than a month ago, is thankfully in that action. It's not necessarily the choreography that's better. It's just that this isn't trying to be John Wick for once. Quaid is not a secret badass. He is the same awkward loser for the whole movie. He just happens not to feel pain. And how action is crafted around that is what's the deciding factor there. It's not all of a sudden the girlfriend gets taken hostage and now he's a secret badass. There's actually a point in the film that he reveals that he kind of self-tattoos. And I said, oh boy, here we go. What is he going to work for, like the Russian mob or something like that? He's, who is this? He's got some Eastern,
that's true.
He's got some Eastern Promises tattoos on. No. It's just he is who he is from the get-go, and I feel like there's
There is something there.
Oddly refreshing about
Actually,
that.
everything else fails at that.
Yeah, everything
Well,
else is trying to be secret badass John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick that started was, Secret Badass. Then
Yep.
you had the one with Better Call Saul guy.
Yep, Nobody.
Which Nobody 2 will be coming out.
Yep.
And then Love Hurts we just watched.
Yep.
Same deal, Secret Badass.
Yep.
You also have Boy Meets World. No, Boy
Kills World. Yep.
Boy Meets World. That was another one. You had
Monkey
the
Man.
Monkey.
Yep.
The Monkey Man.
Yep.
It's just like every single action flick, basically.
Yep, it's like...
And then anything Jason Statham is in. The Beekeeper.
Oh, right. Yeah, Beekeeper is absolutely secret badass. So is going to be The Working Man. I think that's out next 2 weeks or something. I'll save my thoughts on that. Apparently, that's going to be a cinematic universe around Statham's character specifically.
Yeah,
so.
well, it's attached to The Beekeeper.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. But yeah, I think the deciding factor here is that the action is, from the outset, is aiming for something different. The blend of comedy and action, I would say, works a lot better for this reason, specifically in the comparison to Love Hurts. The priority in action scenes is not pulling off a badass fight, it's how can Novocaine scramble out of fights without losing a limb. Though I think the best case scenario is that this could have played out like... I don't know. It's been a very long time since I watched it, and it's probably not even rated, but Crank from 2006.
Yes.
Where this kind of premise in the action informs action and comedy in equal ways. This still did strike kind of a Jackie Chan style action where he's not looking for a fight. He wants no trouble, you know, right. as Jackie Chan will say. He doesn't want to hurt the people he's around. He just can't be hurt, and he needs to get out of these fights somehow. So I think there was a slight bit of comedy there. Extremely weak writing, though, and again, anything original in this concept is fully spoiled by the trailer. I mean, this trailer showed everything, and I'm not trying to punish movies for being what they are, but there was something to this that this had no surprises for me. What did surprise me was... what will fall into this very particular score sometimes, because more often than not, it comes paired with a feeling, and boy, did I sure feel nothing with this. We're going to go ahead and give Novocaine a 50 on the dot.
Whoa, that's a quickie and a 50. Okay.
Yeah, that is a quickie.
So were you just annoyed by it? Like, you annoyed that you had to go to the movies and watch this in the end? You just weren't impressed by very much?
No, because honestly, I wanted to be proved wrong a little bit with my expectations of like Jack Quaid and
sure,
and I was kind of proven wrong that he wasn't a secret badass, you know, in the action. So there were some things there. It really comes down to the writing, though. I mean, like, man, this.
I can only imagine it's not that.
Yeah,
we don't really know any of the team here.
Yeah. It was just so the meet cute, the rom-com in the first, I don't know,
I heard
fifth of it.
Yeah, I heard it's like 25 minutes of just like normal rom-com that just people were not asking for.
Right.
I had read that.
And in that sense, did work better than Love Hurts, where it was, it was trying to pair geriatric Kihei Kwan with, whatever her name is. But so it was a little bit more believable in that regard. But there was just something like, oh man, it was a little bit pulling teeth just to get through it. Even though once the action really kicks off, I was excited to see how each scene was kind of going to play out.
Right. Okay, well, the coveted 50% in that weird puddle.
Yep.
I don't know who this movie is for, but
That's
maybe it's just like, could this be a folding laundry?
Oh, yes.
Comes on Netflix.
Folding laundry. Also, honestly, despite the rated R and a lot of blood, very much more of a teen action film, rom-com.
Yeah.
I think both in like the maturity of how the rom-com plays out and whatnot. So... probably, could have worked much better on streaming. But in the news show, you said that this is was number 2 or number 1?
It was technically number 1. Mm-hmm. It made $8.8 million for opening weekend, so it's not good. But again, it was $18 million to make. And I like the fact that an action film only costs $18 million. Like,
Absolutely.
I don't know. I like that.
Absolutely.
And so it's probably going to make money in the end.
Yeah.
And
I think for what it's worth, this was released this in the same window that Love Hurts and Heart Eyes was, and I think you probably would have gotten another date night movie alongside Companion that Jack Quaid would have been fine for.
That's the thing. It's almost like these movies shouldn't exist. These are for streaming. The thing is, I think you need to save the theaters first to continue on our ongoing conversation. But you need to save the movies first and have it be a date night again, because it's not really.
Sure.
And then this movie can actually do well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Basically play the role it's meant for. You know?
It's just not there yet. People just don't go... Yeah, like I said, they go 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. But anyways, 50% for Novocaine. Before we get on to our next two films, folks, we just want to remind everybody that Vin and I are going off the value for value model. We are not advertising based or subscription based or anything like that. There won't be any paywalls on the site where you need to pay money in order to access all the content of the daily ratings. It's not Patreon where you pay a little bit or per tier that you pay, you get more. It's not that. Vin and I put everything out there, everything we do for free. So the idea is if you're getting value from what we're doing, if you're enjoying the podcast and tuning in once in a while or every week, are you checking out the website for reviews? We look at that as value in your pocket. Can you send us value back in our pocket? It's value for value. So that's how we're doing it. You notice that we don't have any advertising all over the place. There's no advertising on this site. We just think it's a worse product. We don't want to treat you, the listener, as a product. So this is kind of how we're doing it. We're listener supported. So if you go to thedailyratings.com and head to the donations tab, send in a donation of any amount and you become an actual legitimate producer of the Daily Ratings. And along with your donation, you can send us in a producer note. This can be questions, comments, critiques, say anything and ask us anything. This time in the podcast right here, the producer segment is when we'll give you the thanks, and we'll also read your note. So you can email us at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. Again, when you donate, send a donation in, you go ahead and email us your note, and we'll address it right here on the podcast. The idea is, since we're listener-supported, producer-supported, when you produce for the show, we want to give you more than just a thanks. We want to bring you into the conversation and hear what you have to say. We want to thank all the producers that's been producing so far. And if you want to be an executive producer of episode 179 for next week, again, just go to thedailyratings.com, head to the donations tab. Okay, with that, Vin, let's go on to the Netflix non-hit, but the big Netflix, big, very expensive budget. And it's being shoved out to everybody on their home screens on Netflix. This is The Electric State with Joe and Anthony Russo coming back. As we talked about before, this is the first thing since The Gray Man on Netflix. Mm-hmm. This is Millie Bobby Brown, and this is Chris Pratt starring. And we both watched it. I don't know where you want to start.
I feel like I want to toss the summary section to you on these things.
No, not for this one. This movie goes places. I'll say this: Stanley Tucci was underused.
Oh, sure.
And was not used properly. When you have a Stanley Tucci, it's like a break glass for emergency. It's like, get him going. This is how he saves that third Transformers movie. Or whichever one.
Yeah.
Or the fourth Transformers
I was just
going
to say, I mean, are you sure you mean that in the Transformers sense? Because he's pretty bad there.
No, he makes the movie completely.
Really?
Boy, does he make that movie. But this is kind of a big movie. It does go a lot of places.
Yeah.
You start, you set it up, and we'll take it back and forth.
Well, okay. Not to play in the phrasing of a meme, but the fall off of the Russo brothers really needs to be studied. Words cannot describe how excited I was for our directing duo post-Avengers Endgame. They were a financier's wet dream. To date, the only directors to ever successfully wrap up a cinematic universe, and probably will be the only ones for a very long time. But time after time, they have taken on these streaming projects. Cherry for Apple Plus first, and now The Gray Man and The Electric State for Netflix. It would be one thing if they took this opportunity to give us something unique or new that could only live on streaming for its success, but no. Instead, we get the same thing you would see in theaters, but somehow worse and a matching ballooned budget. $300 million.
Is that what this was?
People said 320, but I had trouble finding
right around there.
That specific.
Crazy
is right.
That is some of the biggest films ever made. Like top 10 biggest films ever made. Boom, right here.
Absolutely. So it's just like, if you're gonna just take the budget and do these streaming projects, I don't know. I just cannot wrap my head around the. I mean, maybe Cherry had Tom Holland in it. They were working with Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Maybe that was just like a flip.
Was that like the one that's a quieter film, smaller?
Yeah, we didn't cover it.
Church type.
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
I think so. Or he's like not a POW, but someone coming back from war.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't cover it. That was in the very, very early days of the podcast, but the Gray Man was the first time we checked in with the brothers. The Electric State is a sci-fi adventure that is a retro callback in everything from style, structure, and most of all, nostalgia bait. Starting in an alternate reality 1990s, widespread robotics have transformed the world we know, climaxing in a sentient robot uprising. The gun that won the war oddly being neurodrones that humanity uses to control robot husks. So, calling the kettle black here. Robots by another name. Still basically robots.
Right. The idea is you put something on your head and you can control a robot.
Yeah.
Like if it's yourself.
Absolutely. Millie Bobby Brown plays a moody teen who, after losing her family, is visited by a robot claiming to be her lost brother. With nothing to lose, she teams up with Chris Pratt, a pop culture artifact hunter, to travel into the heart of robot kind, known simply as the X. Hot on their tails is the Robot Cleanup Task Force with everyone's favorite villain, Giancarlo Esposito, who is backed by Stanley Tucci, the tech mogul who will do anything to keep his drone innovations on top. While I haven't heard what any one critic has said about this, and boy, that has been temptation. That has been an open whiskey bottle. just anytime I've been on my computer or my phone, I've just been very eager to see what others are saying, and that'll be my reward tonight after we're done recording. But I would really have to just be deaf and blind not to know it's getting dragged online.
It is. The reviews are not good.
Yeah.
Before it hit theaters, the reviews were not good.
Yeah.
When the critics got early releases.
Right.
It's just it's not doing so hot. It's not doing so hot.
Yeah. For me, and I'm sure this is going to vary, and why I kind of introduce it that way, I'm sure there's enough of a punching bag here, enough of a pie to go around, that you can choose one thing that really doesn't work for you, and that's probably enough to really not like and watch the movie. Mm-hmm. For me, the glaring issue was just how cliche every single character was written. What starts as clear homages to half a dozen blockbuster tropes just quickly loses any original bone in its body. Millie Bobby Brown is probably the best example of this. She is confusingly over-explained and underdeveloped at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of.
We get a shit ton of exposition and her motives with the brother and whatnot, but at the same time, the stuff that comes out of her mouth is so generic and throwaway. It's just
it is.
So chip on shoulder, oh my God. It's actually that chip on shoulder routine is what really highlighted this for me. It's just so bland and just made me wonder if in her career, if she can ever act her way out of that Netflix contract, no less a paper bag.
The last time
Bobby Brown, she doesn't have a good track record, obviously Stranger Things, but
and then she was in that Damsel in Distress
right
last year, which was in Netflix or on Netflix. I don't know. She is doing some other stuff, I think, but
she did those Enola Holmes, the female.
That's right. Yep. Not really our
right, kind of young teen.
Right. I'm not outwardly impressed
right.
by her. I think she does a fine job. Mm-hmm. I don't think she's outwardly a bad actress. Mm-hmm. I just am not impressed by her. I don't know. Maybe I can see her acting too much. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what it is.
Okay.
She doesn't seem like a real person.
Right.
But I can't say her acting is bad like so many other... Well, I think she's in her 20s now or something.
Right.
You always just kind of see her as the kid from Stranger Things.
Sure.
But do you think she's a bad actress?
I think there is a limit. There is a ceiling on her acting ability. That it's not necessarily you can't define it as bad, but that's exactly where I said watching her acting in this and knowing from Damsel, knowing from, these other projects that she's a part of, it's just one, is Netflix going to ever let her go? And two, is she ever going to have the skills to pay the bills to get out of that Netflix contract, I feel like there's something there that she will just be always living on Netflix. And I don't think that's a great reality. I don't think that's a great destiny for any actress. So Chris Pratt, man, just blurs into an unfunny mess of Han Solo wannabe and
Yeah.
literally every other characters he's ever played.
It's so true.
It's such like a mess of like, it's like smelling a candle of Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
a shotgun shot of Pratt.
Yeah,
is what it is, and all
exactly.
the BBs are just different forms of him.
Yeah, one's Star-Lord, one's
It's so
Jurassic
true.
World guy.
Oh, it's so true. But you're right, where he's trying to encapsulate kind of a Han Solo-esque.
Yeah. And that's where what I mean. Like when you're watching these characters at first, it's just like, oh, well, they're definitely trying to be a little tongue in cheek about what blockbuster tropes these characters represent. Very quickly, it just that goes away as far as like something to endear the film over. Very quickly, just becomes something that really burdens it. Of just like, why am I watching this?
It was a slog.
Yeah.
This movie, I think overall, for me, it was just like, when I turned it off, I said, that wasn't a complete, absolute disaster that we have seen before. I mean, it
wasn't Rebel Moon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. It wasn't Rebel Moon. There was way more to it. It was way more of a movie.
Right.
But the end of it, the end goal of it is a slog.
Yeah.
Nothing is really... You can't walk away from it and be like, oh, I really like that. Oh, that at least was really good. The characters were dull. The characters were underwritten, as you said, with Millie Bobby Brown.
Yep.
Chris Pratt was generic, and there was a lot of generic-esque. It took a big idea, but the delivery on it was almost like, how did they make this boring? And they
So
did.
true. It really was. And I think it's boring
Look at
because of the
Tucci.
cliches. Yeah, it's just like, I know what this character is going to do before they even talk.
Okay, so just the predictability of it?
Yeah. I will say that cast-wide, across all the actors and actresses, there really wasn't any one single performance that I thought sunk it. But very quickly, you can just feel how those characters aren't really written as characters at all, and instead are just inserts for the personalities we know of the actors. You know what I mean?
That's a good point, yeah.
There's just
Except for
something...
Stanley Tucci, but yeah.
Yeah, right. If only he was... Well, no, actually...
He is a kind of, but he's way too calm.
Yes,
way...
but his mother cooks him an Italian meal in this, and I was like, that's just Tucci.
Well, she makes stuffed peppers, right? She makes stuffed peppers and then lays a cannoli in front of him.
Yeah.
And that was good.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to start just sampling olive oils or something.
right. It just turns into a show. But I have to be honest, I have a tiny bit of a bone to pick with the film itself. My main interest in seeing how the Russos would grow the style of sci-fi with this project was exactly that. I wanted to see what they could do. This movie is loosely adapted from a 2018 graphic novel of the same name. The artist, Simon Stalenhag, is someone I've followed for a very long time online and continues to make these like haunting, photorealistic concept arts. For his original work, landscapes are dotted with these retro futuristic ruins. You have a collapsed mech over a rotting highway, or farmland just littered with these pulsing red towers in the distance. Very kind of haunting imagery. It doesn't really tell a story in itself, but really provocative and really grabs your attention. Spoiler to no one, in no way does this capture the tremendous atmosphere of Stalenhag's original work, but I also can't blame the Russos for making things a little bit more kid-friendly. Did I expect this, like, haunting post-apocalypse with, like, mascot robots everywhere? No. But there are elements that kind of come through for Stalenhag's work that still made me, want to check it out. What the Russos absolutely did not have to do was infuse as much 90s nostalgia as possible into the film, to the point that it feels like the movie was made by Netflix's other favorite duo, the Duffer Brothers, with their project Stranger Things. Everything from AOL notifications, Orange Julius in the mall, Mr. Peanut. I mean, it clearly takes its cues from something like Ready Player One, and until we revisit that movie, I can't really go into explaining when or even how shit like that is acceptable. Either way, though, all of the callbacks range from whatever to nauseating, and I feel like it's just gonna honestly boil down to your own tolerance.
Yeah,
on
that's
this
what
stuff,
it is. It did not bother me as much.
Right.
I know that kind of stuff can get to you.
Yeah, and it did.
They were going for something. They really wanted you to let you know you were in the 90s.
Yeah.
If anything, I thought it could have just been done better. I thought there was a way to kind of make us feel like we're in the 90s and just kind of like putting it in your face constantly.
Right.
I'm glad it didn't take place in present day. I thought at least it was cool that they tried to take a different time. You know what I mean?
I like the approach of alternate reality 1990s.
Right. Yeah,
I think that's cool.
Right.
Sci-fi wise, I think that's a playground. I just wish that an alternate 1990s was communicated almost in any other way.
Sure, okay,
you know
all right,
what I mean? I'm like, sure, do some things, just not all of them. And that's what I mean. Like, you know, the Russos, they had this opportunity to tell a sci-fi story of like stuff that we recognize as far as mascots being kind of semi-disturbing in a way.
Yeah.
And tied into robotics and tied into these concepts. At the same time, though, I don't need Chris Pratt saying, you know, I don't know, what was it, Hungry, Hungry Hippos or the talking fish bass on the wall. It's just like...
It's too much. It's too
enough,
much for you.
Enough! It's too much. In this retro futurism, this kind of retro futurism comedy, for what it's worth, I do think that if you enjoyed the recent Fallout TV show, there might be some enjoyment in the comedy of the robots there. That definitely struck some Fallout vibes to it, and games included. But very little is keeping me from forgetting this seconds after this review. And it is yet another movie in the pile we call Netflix fodder. We're going to go ahead and give The Electric State a 43.
Wow, a 43.
Yeah.
Well, you were plowing through these reviews.
I'm plowing through these reviews, and also that didn't need any more time.
So, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more time.
My tangent on Simon Stalenhag was enough of a stretch.
Okay, so it was the entire movie. We weren't expecting anything for this. First of all, we didn't walk into this being like, I can't wait for this. It's going to be this day. But you still are kind of left empty. You're left saying like it wasted your time a little bit for sure. Again, because it's kind of tries to be a big story. I'll just repeat again. There is not one thing that you can say, oh, I really like this about it. I love this about it. Everything kind of was just flat. Giancarlo Esposito.
Yep.
I don't know why he had to change his accent or why they told him to change his voice and accent.
Right. When everyone just wants him to be evil
just
Spanish
totally,
man.
wholly unnecessary.
Yep.
And the thing where I felt like the movie was failing as an actual like product, or it was failing to be a movie. I don't know if it was just me. I was picking up almost immediately weird editing decisions, and sound design I thought was a huge issue for me.
Really?
So I thought the editing, especially in the first half, was choppy and really weird and way too much.
Yep.
Where it was like it was throwing me out of it. And then also the audio was weird for me.
Yeah.
Something about the sound design and the audio just seemed a little off, especially between the humans and robots.
Oh, okay.
I didn't like that there was a volume issue, and then also I picked up on a lot of ADR stuff. I thought the post recording audio recording that they overlay with the actual what's going on screen. Something about it was throwing it off to me. And I don't know if it's because we've been doing this long enough.
Yeah,
but
picking it up.
It's not like I noticed it on the black bag. It was this movie specifically that something felt slightly off.
Yeah.
It was a fraction of a second off or something like that.
I definitely felt that with certain scenes of where the robots were very, interacting with our characters, very directly interacting with our characters, because I think there's one specifically that there's a long monologue, and I won't go into, the spoilers of who the character is, but there's something there that I was like, this feels like they didn't know which licensing property they had to slot into the CGI. So they just had the conversation, wrote the conversation that could fit anyone, and then they slotted it in the CGI afterwards,
Yeah, I don't know. So there was just something about it throwing it off. And it could be, I bet, I don't know. Most of the people won't know or care. So I really like 43. For me, I would definitely give it below a 50% as well.
Yeah.
Because I think it was failing enough.
Sure. And maybe in the elephant in the room of this having anywhere from a 15 to 30%
it's all over
online. I feel like there was something to the Netflix fodder that there still was acceptable in a lot of ways. Was it good? No. Did I enjoy my time? No. And I think if anything, there's a lot of squandered opportunity with just everything this concept could have had.
It is. It's a weird.
But it wasn't like outright bad like Rebel Moon was, or
100%. You're so right on that.
Yeah.
You're so right on that, because I went back and watched The Gray Man after this.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And I like Gray Man more.
Okay.
And I felt like now I was almost a little bit too harsh on Gray Man.
Interesting.
But I mean, I still have issues with it.
Sure.
But it was better than The Electric State. Something about The Gray Man, and probably most of it was Ryan Gosling making it work.
Yeah.
But to me, that was actually functioning as a film better than this film.
Sure.
And maybe just have more going on. This is
Yeah.
boring at times, the Electric State.
Right. And that's the exact opposite of what this is gunning for, as far as it's a sci-fi adventure ripping on every blockbuster sci-fi adventure possible.
It needs to be quicker.
Yeah.
It needs to be faster paced, for sure.
Yeah, they took the lessons from the wrong areas and think they thought they were going to get the same results,
Well, sorry we couldn't help you out there, Russo brothers.
No,
Just another batch critic bashing on you.
I'm telling you, Russo brothers, get your act together. You again, the
I've
golden
never had
glue,
hope for them.
the golden
never,
goose.
Never appreciated them.
Well,
Never.
My position is again, they are the only ones to ever close down a cinematic universe, no less successfully.
How involved were they with Marvel from Phase 1 to 3?
So first one they did was Winter Soldier. Then they did Civil War. So both of the latter half of the Captain America films, and then it was Infinity War and Endgame. That's
I'm not the biggest fan of those movies.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
You cannot deny how monumental that close-up is. They stitched it all together.
Right. Okay. All right.
Where you look at anyone else trying to stitch together, I mean, Christ, they had to release 2 Justice Leagues for it. So where I say they were a financier's wet dream, I really mean that.
They were moneymakers.
They could have probably funded anything.
They were printing machines. Well, and then they did fun things.
Yeah,
they're called the Gray Man and the Electric
Cherry
State.
and Electric State.
Okay, well let's go next to kind of our 90-minute sleek, quick spy drama directed by Steven Soderbergh, who we saw this year, written by David Koepp, who we've seen this year, both for Presence, which you did not like.
No.
But David Koepp and Steven Soderbergh are back for Black Bag. And like I said, it's a quick, sleek spy thriller. We saw it together in theaters, and we came away feeling relatively good about it. I'm excited to see kind of where you actually land after giving it some thought and write notes on it. But why don't you set it up for us? We'll take it back and forth.
Well, not only are we back with Steven Soderbergh and David Koepp for the second time in a matter of weeks, but this completes the trifecta with composer David Holmes as well, returning to work with them to infuse plenty of cool vibes with the music. And that rule of cool is really what I'm kind of walking away appreciating most about this film, because when it comes to that type of approach, Soderbergh has a very good formula to it. It was the only movie this week to benefit from marinating on the score a little bit, where I really only got harsher with everything else.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
And I had the same effect, by the way, for this Black Bag. It's kind of like, okay, yeah. I'm glad this was made. I'm glad this came out.
Right. If anything, just by comparison to Electric State.
Yeah, it's helping it out.
Yeah. Walking out of the theater, I was in that same boat with you, Tom. I felt this was just a clear case of style over substance, but as it reflected on the story, I just really appreciated how tight-knit everything was, even if even if this planned on pulling out the rug on the mystery in one way or another. Black Bag is a spy mystery that centers us in modern British espionage, following a husband and wife that have come up in the agency together. Full credit to Koepp's writing on this. We are immediately briefed on the stakes. A top-secret software named Severus has leaked, and one of 5 individuals are responsible. In order to snuff out the rat, an unsuspecting dinner party is planned. This efficiently sets the stage for the players in our story, and also kicks off the clues we have to unravel for the mystery. Leading this investigation is George, played by Michael Fassbender, a master of detection and surveillance that every guest is more than a little nervous to be around. But while 4 out of the 6 party guests might be simple work colleagues, his suspicions most importantly include his own wife, Catherine, played by Cate Blanchett. While in any workplace relationship it might be hard to juggle, most things are kept at arm's length by uttering the phrase black bag, however, a term of no questions asked that quickly becomes a playground for secrets to swirl and to point in on each other. Folks, I'll be honest, I was going into this just kind of a bit snarky. By the looks of the trailer, it seemed like it was yet another Mr. and Mrs. Smith take, which was already resurrected earlier last year for the Amazon streaming show. And while there are still plenty of similarities, you kind of can't escape those similarities, honestly, just by having a husband and wife spy combo. I was really, really happy this went in a different direction, or at least a slightly different direction. You can feel this in how clearly the film communicates the puzzle pieces to its mystery. If you look at the last handful of projects for Soderbergh, they all have a similar scaled-down quality to them. This is thankfully not as simple as Presence, and I would definitely say it's somewhere around the scale of his other streaming projects. The one to really come to mind is 2021's No Sudden Move. This element was, believe it or not, a big strength for the story, however. Even though sometimes our suspected characters can sound a bit cartoonish in their dialogue or rushed for how jam-packed they need to get across their lines and how jam-packed that can feel, the payoff is worth it to create a clearly laid out mystery and a game of whodunit, Cloak and Dagger edition. I would say, in line with my original thoughts, though, the style is still very much the priority over everything else. And that style is spy pulp. Let's just say Sodi knew what he was doing with this one. The first 20 minutes are a very slick demonstration of how he creates a distinctly modern-feeling spy thriller. What are your thoughts there, maybe in kind of comparison to recent Bonds and other kind of spy stuff?
Well, I think, I think Soderbergh's primed for this because I don't know, something about the spy thriller works really well with what he's known before, especially with the Ocean's movies. Because there's something secretive. There's planning involved.
Yep.
There's, you know what I mean? There's tailing. There's whatever. So I think they go hand in hand, and he's really, really good at this. It's really hard for me to compare it to another large spy franchise or anything like it because it's such a small movie.
Sure.
And like you said, it's tight. It's a tight package.
Yeah.
And it's kind of basic in a good way.
In a streamlined way.
I would almost say, hey, let's just do another spy thriller. Now we'll triple your budget.
Sure.
Make it longer and go crazy with it.
Yeah.
So this, I appreciated it. I mean, a lot has to do with the dialogue. I would say when you say it's style driven, I think the story is strong enough where I'm coming out of this saying, like, I really appreciated the story first.
Okay.
Then I would say the style. Because the writing was a little bit generic in ways.
Sure,
You know, it was, like you said, it's, characters can sound a little awkward sometimes.
It just feels like they're
unnatural.
rushing to, get across their paragraph before we have to move to yet another character,
interesting, yeah.
or George is moving on as far as his suspicion.
Okay, so you were kind of picking up like a play vibe, which I kind of bitch about sometimes.
Right.
Where a movie can just kind of feel too much like a play. This is kind of what it is, and I think it's just the smallness of the film.
Sure.
So I enjoyed it. I like Steven Soderbergh's playing in this kind of sandbox of spy thriller, and I say, like, keep going with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
David Holmes, you know how much I love the music for Oceans. Yeah. You got me with the album on vinyl, one of the Ocean's 11 soundtrack, which I absolutely love. I'm a big David Holmes guy, and for them kind of going together on this totally makes sense.
Yeah. And I think those aspects, some are pulled off more successfully than others. Music is one of those strong ones. Honestly, I think visually this film, even though it looks very new, it looks very, it's trying to be this like modern espionage movie. Full credit goes to you, Tom, for catching this. The chlorine eye look to the lighting.
Yes. So we
might age this a little in a couple of years.
We came up to this with this term when we had dinner after we saw the film. Soderbergh is going for something weird here, and he does his he does his own editing, and he does his own cinematography. There's something where anything that's bright in the movie, so candles on the kitchen table, if you're indoors and just the brightness of the outside coming through the windows, there is a hueing effect.
Yes.
And we came up with it with chlorine eyes. If you spend all day in the pool, and then you just like every light has that weird hue to it then by the end of the day. And that's what this movie is. I don't know. There's got to be a professional name for it. I don't know what it is.
The bloom of it? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why there is so much of it.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't add for me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's where the style might like age the film in a couple of years. You watch this and it's just like, what is going on here? Like,
It was totally noticeable.
Yeah.
And Soderbergh being as I don't know, not poignant, but as purposeful as he is, it's there for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. But other areas where the style shines is like the music. It shows the bench strength of having a solid team that has worked together in the past and collaborating again. David Holmes on the ones and twos is really the secret ingredient in crafting the film's modern spy atmosphere. It's been a while since I pointed to specific, tracks on the soundtrack, but the track Zurich on the OST is a perfect example of this. If you want to give it a listen, folks. Digital synths and industrial flourishes kind of create a paranoid feeling of modern surveillance, while in the background, and definitely on other tracks on the soundtrack, you still you hear plenty of classic touches like bongos or marching drums that feel ripped right out of like a 70s spy TV show. And I feel like the blend of that was really successful. This was a minimalist soundtrack.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
not really a lot going on with it, but those subtle touches really created like a nice underlining that you knew you were watching a spy movie and you knew you were watching a modern spy environment.
Yeah, it totally wasn't loud and in your face, but it just helped the movie overall.
Absolutely.
I kind of pegged him right away because there were, I could hear the oceansness of it.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, just go hand in hand. It's genius.
Yep, absolutely. And I think again that track Zurich is just a perfect example of everything we're talking about here, and certainly just like a cool soundtrack by David Holmes. I will say I'm always looking out for Tom Daly potential. I feel like, again, this year has not been really great, but if there was something to maybe get of running in Best Music, David Holmes might have a pony in the race with this one.
Wow.
So, but really more so my appreciation is just like how that is used to elevate the style even more.
Sure.
Communicate the style even. Folks, without covering this, I would have had significantly worse of an average on the movie scores this week. And with Soderbergh's last movie, Presence, being one of the lowest scored of the year, I did not have too much hope. Like I said, I was kind of walking into this with a little bit of snark, kind of expecting to trash it a little bit. But I'm happy to say the rule of cool prevails. Even if you might bounce off some of the characters in this, or maybe even guessed a handful of the twists to the mystery, I still think this movie is a stylish vision of what a 2020s spy movie could look like, which I can only hope Amazon takes notes for when dusting off their eventual James Bond projects. We're going to go ahead and give Black Bag a 71.
Okay, 71%. I think it belongs right there.
Yeah.
I think we're giving the movie just enough praise. Like, you know what I mean? I think if we went any more, we'd be sounding a little bit too much.
Right.
Almost, because I don't...
Because it is really small.
Exactly.
That's a strength, but also that could be like, kind of a throwaway.
Exactly, yeah. And so I think this is more than when it comes to Netflix or whatever it ends up, it's more than a laundry movie.
Right.
It's like, make dinner and sit down and watch it. Enjoy yourself. Real quick, just to kind of go down the acting stuff, I thought Michael Fassbender was very good. Kate Blanchett was very good. I always hate to see Naomi Harris, who plays Moneypenny in the Bond films. I think she's always good. Everyone else was, I would say, fine. I don't think anyone was overly impressing me.
Right.
There's one guy I'm not the biggest fan of. It's Regé-Jean Page.
Is that the muscly guy?
Yes.
Yeah, he's been in a handful of things and just hasn't got his footing. He was in the Dungeons & Dragons movie. And
he's in The Gray Man.
Oh,
and he plays the worst character in The Gray Man.
Yes.
Like, awkward, not good, horribly written, not
cliche,
well acted. Yeah, it's just like, didn't really like him. And
he basically plays the same character.
And I think in The Black Bag, he's a little bit of that same guy, Other than that,
typecasting himself.
Michael Fassbender, if he's going to forever be... Talk about typecasting. If Michael Fassbender is going to forever just be this guy... he makes it work.
Cold and calculated. This is basically The Killer again.
Absolutely. He's in a movie... the show called The Agency?
Oh, really?
Or something around... Yeah, it's either The Agency or something else, but... Because it's the same character.
He's another spy.
It's exactly right. Same character.
He plays it well.
And he does. And Kate Blanchett was great. And I think any other notable actor was Pierce Brosnan. Plays kind of a small role in this and crushing it.
Sure.
I was talking with you. If he kind of stays in this lane, him and whatever his face is.
Hugh Grant.
And Hugh Grant. I don't know. There's a lane for him in here. Because I feel like he's flailing a little bit.
Sure.
Or was, at least. Pierce.
It's one of those things where you kind of found, later on in the career when you can't be the heartthrob anymore, as both Brosnan and Hugh Grant were very much in the early 2000s and late 90s.
This character was for him.
Yeah, I guess you go to villains, You go.
Okay, so Black Bag with a 71%. Excellent, Vin. We got through this episode pretty quick here.
Yeah, breezy.
Yeah. Any other notes looking at these scores? Anything for coming up or roll credits?
Well, next week is probably going to be jam-packed as well. It might shift a tiny bit, but we definitely are covering Snow White. We will see some terrible acting at the hands of Gal Gadot. Probably
and who
7.
knows how many more.
Yeah, who knows?
We do plan on seeing it together, folks, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, somehow we're only watching bad movies together. Like, I really want to watch like good movies together.
Mission Impossible is just a couple months away. Don't you worry, Vin.
Don't you worry.
As always, Vin, thank you so much for watching these, writing all these notes, and stopping by here tonight. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. We have Opus with a 56%, Novocaine with a 50%, The Electric State with a 43%, and Black Bag by Steven Soderbergh with a 71%. As always, folks, thank you so much for stopping by and listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. And hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. And just a reminder, the Daily Ratings is completely producer-supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in what we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.